My name is Jessica Reynolds and I'm 46 years old. I've been divorced for almost 12 years now, raising my son Tyler, who just turned 21 last month, all on my own. It wasn't the life I had imagined for myself, but we make do with the cards we're dealt, don't we? I still remember the day my ex-husband David walked out. Tyler was only 9, clutching his favorite dinosaur toy and asking when Daddy would be back. I didn't have the heart to tell him that Daddy had found someone younger. Someone who didn't have stretch marks and dark circles under her eyes from staying up all night with a sick child. Someone who didn't come with the responsibilities of parenthood. But this isn't a story about David. This is about what happened between me and Tyler. The child I would have given my last breath for. The one I thought I knew. The one who taught me that sometimes love isn't enough. I've always worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. My main job as an administrative assistant at the local community college pays the bills, and my weekend work at a catering company helps with extras. For 12 years, I've operated on 5 hours of sleep, worn secondhand clothes, and passed up vacations. Also, Tyler could have everything he needed, and most of what he wanted. When Tyler started high school, I began putting money aside for his college fund. It wasn't much at first, just $50 here, $100 there. I'd skip lunches, cancel my cell phone data plan, and shop at discount grocery stores. Anything to add a few more dollars to that account. By his senior year, I had managed to save $46,780. Not enough for a fancy private university, but enough to cover tuition at our state college for 4 years if he lived at home. I didn't tell Tyler exactly how much I had saved. I just assured him that I had college covered. He seemed grateful, if a bit distant, which I chalked up to teenage angst. When he was accepted to state university with a partial academic scholarship, I was over the moon. My sacrifices had been worth it. My son would get the education I never had. The summer after his high school graduation was wonderful. Tyler seemed to open up again, reminding me of the sweet boy he'd been before the teenage years. We'd watch movies together on our old couch, go for ice cream at the local shop, and talk about his future. I thought we were reconnecting. "Mom, I think I want to major in business," he told me one evening as we sat on our tiny apartment balcony. "I could get a good job afterward, and then I'll take care of you for a change." I remember the way my heart swelled that night. This was why I had worked so hard, to give him opportunities one never had. Tyler started college that fall and decided to live on campus despite the additional expense. I dipped into my own meager personal savings to help with his dorm costs. It's part of the college experience, I told myself. He deserves to have that. The first year went well. Tyler would call me every Sunday night, telling me about his classes, his new friends, and his part-time job at the campus bookstore. His grades were good, mostly B's with a few A's. I was so proud. It was during his sophomore year that things began to change. The Sunday calls became less frequent. When we did talk, he seemed distracted, often cutting our conversations short. When he came home for winter break, he spent most of his time out with old high school friends. I tried not to feel hurt. He was growing up, becoming independent. Isn't that what I had raised him to do? By his junior year, our relationship had become even more strained. He rarely answered my texts, and when he did, his responses were curt. He only came home when he needed something, laundry done, a home-cooked meal, or money for unexpected expenses. Each time I would give him what he asked for. Each time I would tell myself it was just a phase. It was March when it happened. I was working an extra shift at the catering company when my phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. "Mom, I need your credit card for an emergency purchase for school. Can I use it? I'll pay you back from my next paycheck." I was in the middle of serving appetizers at a corporate event, so I quickly texted back. "What's the emergency? My laptop died and I have a major project due tomorrow. Best Buy has the one I need. Around $1,000. $1,000 was steep, but I understood the importance of his education. His old laptop had been showing signs of age. "My card is in my wallet in the kitchen drawer. The pin is your birthday. Thanks, Mom, you're the best. Love you." That last part, "love you," made me smile. It had been months since he'd said those words. When I got home after midnight, Tyler was gone, and so was my credit card. I texted him to make sure he'd found what he needed, but received no response. I figured he'd gone back to campus and would return my card the next time he visited. The following morning, I was awakened by my phone buzzing incessantly. It was my bank sending fraud alerts. Still half asleep, I opened the app to find multiple withdrawals and charges. Not just on my credit card, but from my savings account as well. $500 withdrawn from an ATM, $2,000 transfer to an external account, $3,500 from another transfer, $1,200 purchase at Apple Store, $4,000 withdrawn from a branch, and on it went. Nearly all of the $46,780 I had spent years accumulating for Tyler's education, gone in a single day. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone to call the bank. "I'm sorry, Ms. Reynolds," the representative said, "but these transactions were made with your card and correct PIN. There's no evidence of fraud. The withdrawals were made in person at various branches, and the person had your ID." My ID, of course. Tyler had taken my entire wallet. I tried calling Tyler immediately. No answer. I texted him, "Tyler, I know what you did. Call me right now." No response. I called the university housing office, and they informed me that Tyler had moved out of the dorms 2 months ago. 2 months? Where had he been living? Why hadn't he told me? I called in sick to both jobs that day and drove the 2 hours to campus in a fog of disbelief and mounting anger. When I arrived at what should have been his dorm, the resident assistant confirmed what housing had told me. Tyler had moved out weeks ago. "Do you know where he went?" I asked desperately. "I think he moved into one of those new luxury apartments near campus," the RA said. "A bunch of students did when they opened last semester. They're crazy expensive though." I knew the place he was talking about. I'd driven past it when visiting campus. Modern buildings with floor-to-ceiling windows, a pool, and a fitness center. The kind of place where rent would be at least $2,000 a month. After getting his new address from one of his former roommates, I drove to the luxury apartment complex. My beat-up 2010 Honda Civic looked comically out of place among the BMWs and Audis in the parking lot. The security guard at the front desk wouldn't let me up without Tyler's permission, and he wasn't answering his phone. I sat in the lobby for 3 hours before I finally saw him walking through the front doors with a group of friends. He was wearing brand new clothes, designer jeans and a leather jacket I could never have afforded to buy him. His friends were similarly dressed, laughing and carrying shopping bags from expensive stores. When he saw me, the color drained from his face. "Mom? What are you doing here?" His friends looked at me, then at each other before quickly excusing themselves. "We'll see you upstairs, Ty," one of them said. Once they were gone, I stood up on shaky legs. "You stole from me," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Can we not do this here?" Tyler hissed, looking around the lobby nervously. "You stole my life savings," I continued louder now. "Money I worked 2 jobs to save. Money that was for your education." "Mom, lower your voice," he pleaded. "Let's go up to my apartment and talk about this." I followed him to the elevator, too stunned and angry to argue. His apartment was on the 12th floor. A corner unit with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The furniture was all new. A massive TV hung on the wall. The latest gaming system sat below it, surrounded by stacks of games. "What is all this?" I asked, gesturing around. "How long have you been living here? How have you been paying for it?" Tyler sighed and flopped down on his leather couch. "I moved in with some friends in January. We're splitting the rent 4 ways. And the money for your share? The deposit? All of this." I waved at the expensive surroundings. "I've been working extra shifts at the bookstore," he said, not meeting my eyes. "Don't lie to me. Not anymore." My voice was shaking with rage. "You took my money. Every penny I saved for your tuition." He was quiet for a moment before looking up. "It's just a loan, Mom. I'm going to pay you back." "A loan?" I repeated incredulously. "You took my credit card under false pretenses. You stole my ID. You drained my account without permission. That's not a loan, Tyler. That's theft." "You're being dramatic," he said, rolling his eyes. "I was going to tell you." "When?" "After you'd spent it all." I could feel tears threatening, but I refused to cry. "Do you have any idea how hard I worked for that money? How many double shifts I took? How many nights I stayed up worried about making enough to pay for your education. That's not my fault, he said defensively. I never asked you to work yourself to death. His callousness knocked the wind out of me. Who was this person? This wasn't the boy I raised. That money, I said slowly, making sure he understood every word, was for your college tuition. I saved it so you wouldn't have to take out loans. So you could graduate debt-free. A flicker of something, recognition, perhaps regret, passed across his face, but it vanished quickly. Well, you should have told me that, he said. Anyway, I don't think I'm going back next semester. College isn't really my thing. I stared at him, uncomprehending. What do you mean not going back? You're halfway through your degree. He shrugged. Some of us are thinking of starting a business. Ryan's dad is an investor, and he might back us. We don't need degrees for that. Ryan, one of his new friends, no doubt. The kind that wore designer clothes and drove luxury cars funded by their parents' wealth. So you stole money that was meant for your education. To do what exactly? Buy furniture, clothes, live in a fancy apartment. It's an investment in my future, he said, as if explaining something simple to a child. And like I said, I'll pay you back when our business takes off. I laughed then, a hollow sound without humor. And if this business doesn't take off? What then, Tyler? He stood up suddenly, anger flashing in his eyes. Why can't you just be supportive? You're so controlling with money. It's always been your way or nothing. Maybe I wanted to make my own decisions for once. By stealing from me? I was shouting now, past caring who heard. That was my money, Tyler. Money I earned. Oh please, he scoffed. You've been holding that money over my head forever. I've got college covered. Like you're some kind of martyr for doing what parents are supposed to do anyway. His words cut deep, each one like a physical blow. What parents are supposed to do? I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. Your father walked out and hasn't sent a single child support payment in 12 years. I worked 2 jobs so you could have a roof over your head and food on the table. I went without so you could have what you needed. And now you're telling me that was just expected? That I should have done more. Other kids' parents pay for everything, he said resentfully. College, housing, cars. I've been stuck with your budget constraints my whole life. I felt something inside me break. All these years, I believed my sacrifices were appreciated, or at least understood. But Tyler had been comparing me to the parents of his more affluent friends, finding me lacking. I gave you everything I could, I whispered. Well, it wasn't enough, he shouted. And now you're here making me feel guilty for taking what should have been mine anyway. I stood there in shocked silence as the full reality of the situation washed over me. My son, the person I loved most in this world, had not only stolen from me but felt entitled to do so. That money, I finally said, my voice steadier than I expected, was for your future. A future I wanted to secure for you, even if it meant sacrificing my own comfort. But if you think taking it without my permission was justified, then there's nothing more for us to discuss. I turned to leave, but Tyler's next words stopped me cold. You're being selfish, he said. If you really loved me, you'd want me to be happy. You'd give me that money willingly. I turned back slowly. Selfish. The word tasted bitter on my tongue. I have been many things in my life, Tyler, but selfish has never been one of them. Then prove it, he challenged. Consider the money a gift. An investment in my business idea instead of some college degree I don't even want. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time I saw not my son but a stranger. A person who had been shaped by entitlement and ingratitude. A person I didn't recognize. No, I said simply. His face contorted with anger. What do you mean, no? I mean no. That money wasn't a gift. It was stolen. And I want it back. He laughed dismissively. Or what? You'll call the police on your own son. The question hung in the air between us. Would I? Could I report my own child for theft? The thought made me sick. But the alternative, letting him get away with this betrayal, this entitled disregard for my sacrifices, seemed worse. I don't know yet, I answered honestly. But I do know that I won't stand by and let you throw away your education and your future on some half-baked business scheme. And I won't let you manipulate me with guilt and accusations of selfishness. So you're threatening me now? He asked incredulously. I'm setting boundaries, I corrected him. Something I clearly should have done a long time ago. I walked to the door, emotional exhaustion settling over me like a heavy blanket. I'm going home now, I said. I expect you to return what's left of the money by the end of the week. Then we can discuss how you'll repay the rest. And if I don't? He challenged, a hint of worry finally breaking through his defiant facade. I paused with my hand on the doorknob. Then I'll do what I have to do, Tyler. For both our sakes. As I walked out, I heard him call after me. You're overreacting. It's just money. Just money. 12 years of sacrifice reduced to just money. I made it to my car before the tears finally came. Sitting in the driver's seat, I sobbed until I had nothing left. Then with shaking hands, I started the engine and began the long drive home. The weight of Tyler's betrayal pressing down on me with each passing mile. The worst part wasn't the money, though that loss was devastating. The worst part was realizing that the child I thought I knew, the one I had sacrificed everything for, was capable of such callous disregard for my feelings and my financial security. As I drove through the gathering darkness, one question kept circling in my mind. Where do we go from here? How does a mother reclaim her life after such a profound betrayal from the person she loved most in the world? I didn't have answers yet. But for the first time in 21 years, I allowed myself to consider a future focused on my own needs rather than Tyler's. It was a frightening thought, but also strangely liberating. Maybe it was time to stop being just Tyler's mom and remember who Jessica Reynolds was. The 2-hour drive home gave me plenty of time to think. By the time I pulled into the driveway of my modest townhouse rental, something had shifted inside me. The tears had dried, replaced by a calm determination I hadn't felt in years. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a legal pad, meticulously documenting every transaction Tyler had made with my money. I printed bank statements, highlighted withdrawals, and calculated exactly how much he had taken. $42,635 of the $46,780 I had saved. He'd been efficient in his theft, leaving me with just enough to cover next month's bills. I also made a list of every sacrifice I'd made for Tyler over the years. Every Christmas I'd gone without new clothes, so he could have the latest gaming console. Every doctor's appointment I'd postponed because his braces payment was due. Every time I'd eaten ramen noodles for dinner so he could have proper meals. By morning I had made my decision. First, I called both my jobs and requested a week off, something I hadn't done in years. Then I contacted my bank and reported the unauthorized transfers, carefully explaining that while my son had access to my card, he did not have permission to withdraw from my savings account. The representative was sympathetic but explained that since Tyler had used my card and PIN, it would be complicated to classify this as fraud. Your best recourse might be small claims court, she suggested, or filing a police report. The thought of taking legal action against my own son made my stomach churn, but I tucked the information away. It was a last resort but an option nonetheless. Next, I called the registrar's office at State University. Hello, I'd like to inquire about my son's enrollment status, I said. Tyler Reynolds. There was a pause while the clerk accessed his records. Ms. Reynolds, it appears your son withdrew from his classes at the beginning of this semester. He's not currently enrolled. Not enrolled. Tyler had been pretending to attend classes for months. All those texts about projects and exams lies. Was there a reason given for his withdrawal? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. According to our records, he cited personal reasons. He did receive a partial tuition refund since he withdrew before the deadline. A refund I never saw. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. And what about his academic standing before withdrawal? He told me he was doing well. Another pause. I'm afraid he was on academic probation last semester. His GPA had fallen below the required minimum. Each revelation was another blow. I thanked the clerk and hung up, adding this new information to my growing file of Tyler's deceptions. Finally, I called the local police station and asked to speak with an officer about theft. I was connected to a Detective Harriet Chun, who listened patiently as I explained my situation. This is technically a crime, she confirmed. But I should warn you that family financial disputes can be difficult to prosecute, especially when access was initially granted to your accounts. I'm not sure I want to press charges, I admitted. I just need to know my options. Document everything, she advised. Texts, calls, bank statements. And if you do decide to report it officially, we're here. But Ms. Reynolds, she hesitated. I've seen cases like this before. Sometimes the threat of legal consequences is enough to get the money returned. I thanked her and hung up, feeling marginally better for having a plan. Or at least the beginning of one. 3 days passed with no word from Tyler. I texted him once each day, keeping my messages brief and to the point. Day 1. I expect the money to be returned by Friday. Let me know how you plan to do this. Day 2. I've spoken with the bank and the police about unauthorized withdrawals. Please call me to discuss repayment options. Day 3. This is your last chance to resolve this before I take further action. Call me. On the 4th day, my phone finally rang. Tyler's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath before answering. Hello, Tyler. Mom. His voice sounded different, smaller somehow. We need to talk. Yes, we do. Not over the phone, he insisted. Can you come back to campus? I thought about the 4-hour round trip, the gas money I could barely afford now. No. If you want to talk, you can come here. There was a long pause. Fine, he finally said. I'll be there tomorrow afternoon. After hanging up, I called my neighbor Patrice, a retired paralegal who had become a friend over the years. I gave her a quick overview of the situation. Would you mind being here when Tyler comes tomorrow? I asked. I could use the support and frankly, I'd feel safer with someone else present. Of course, honey, she said without hesitation. What time should I come over? The next day I cleaned my small townhouse obsessively, a nervous habit from childhood. Patrice arrived an hour before Tyler was due, bringing coffee and a reassuring hug. Remember, she said, you're in the right here. No matter what he says, no matter how he tries to twist things. You're the victim, not him. Tyler arrived 40 minutes late. I watched through the window as he parked his car. A new Honda Civic, much nicer than my old model. Another purchase made with my money, no doubt. When he walked in, I was shocked by his appearance. Gone was the defiant young man from the luxury apartment. This Tyler looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and rumpled clothes. He stopped short when he saw Patrice sitting at my kitchen table. Who's this? He asked, immediately defensive. This is my friend Patrice, I said calmly. She's here for support. Tyler looked like he wanted to object but seemed to think better of it. He slumped into a chair across from me. So, I began, you wanted to talk. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of his childhood that it made my heart ache despite everything. You were right, he said finally. About the business idea. Ryan's dad refused to invest. Said it was half-baked. I waited, saying nothing. And the apartment? They're kicking us out at the end of the month. We missed the rent payment. And the money? I asked, keeping my voice steady. My money. Tyler looked down at his hands. It's gone, Mom. Most of it anyway. Despite having suspected as much, hearing him confirm it felt like a physical blow. All of it. I managed to ask. I have about $5,000 left, he admitted. The rest went to the apartment deposit, furniture, some investments Ryan recommended, and other stuff. Other stuff, I repeated flatly. Like your new car? The designer clothes? The expensive gaming setup I saw. He nodded miserably. I messed up. I know that now. But Mom, I really did think the business would work out. We were going to sell custom athletic gear online. It could have been huge. That doesn't excuse stealing, Patrice interjected firmly. Tyler glared at her before turning back to me. Look, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But I'm your son. We can work this out. I studied his face. The face I had memorized from the moment he was placed in my arms at the hospital. The face I had watched change from baby to toddler to child to teenager. The face that, until recently, I would have trusted without question. You're right about one thing, I said finally. I am your mother. Which is why this betrayal hurts so much more. I said I was sorry, he mumbled. No, actually you haven't, I pointed out. Not once in this conversation have you apologized. He looked startled, then quickly said, I'm sorry, Mom. Really. I wasn't thinking straight. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment, Tyler. You systematically emptied my account over a 24-hour period. You lied about needing a laptop for school when you weren't even enrolled in classes. You've been lying to me for months. He flinched at each accusation but didn't deny them. I want the $5,000 you have left, I said firmly. Today. And I want a signed agreement that you'll repay the rest. Repay? He echoed, looking panicked. How? I don't have that kind of money. You'll get a job. 2 jobs if necessary. Just like I did. Mom, be reasonable. I am being extremely reasonable. I cut him off. The alternative is pressing criminal charges for theft. His face went pale. You wouldn't do that. A week ago I would have agreed with you, I said sadly. But that was before I discovered you're capable of stealing from the person who has sacrificed everything for you. Patrice quietly slid a document across the table. I took the liberty of drafting a repayment agreement, she said. It outlines a payment schedule of $500 per month until the debt is cleared. Tyler stared at the paper like it was a venomous snake. 7 years, he calculated aloud. You expect me to pay you for 7 years? It took me 12 years to save that money, I reminded him. I'm giving you a significant discount on time. And if I refuse? I met his gaze steadily. Then tomorrow morning, I go to the police station and file an official report. Detective Chun is expecting me. His eyes widened at the name. He knew I wasn't bluffing. You'd really send your own son to jail over money? He asked, his voice cracking. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Would I? Could I do that to my child regardless of what he had done? I don't want to, I said honestly. It would break my heart. But Tyler, you need to understand something. This isn't just about money. This is about trust, respect, and consequences. If I let this go, if I allow you to steal from me without repercussion, what lesson does that teach you? That you love me? He suggested weakly. No, I shook my head. It would teach you that you can take advantage of people who love you. That's not a lesson any mother should teach her child. He was quiet for a long moment, looking down at the agreement. What about school? He finally asked. I was thinking of going back next semester. Starting fresh. That's a separate conversation, I said. One we can have after you've shown me I can trust you again. After what seemed like an eternity, Tyler picked up the pen Patrice had placed beside the agreement. His hand trembled slightly as he signed his name. I'll transfer the $5,000 to your account today, he said, his voice subdued. Thank you, I said formally, as if we were concluding a business meeting rather than navigating the shattered remains of our relationship. When he left an hour later, after transferring the money via his phone banking app, I felt hollow. Patrice squeezed my shoulder sympathetically. You did the right thing, she assured me. He needed this wake-up call. That night, alone in my bedroom, I allowed myself to grieve. Not just for the money, but for the innocence lost in our relationship. The unconditional trust that had been broken. The hard lesson that sometimes the people who can hurt you most are those you love most deeply. The following weeks were difficult. Tyler moved back home temporarily, while looking for a new apartment he could actually afford. Our interactions were stiff and formal. The easy rapport we once shared buried under layers of hurt and betrayal. He got a job at a local warehouse working night shifts. The pay was decent, and true to his word, the first $500 payment arrived in my account exactly 1 month after he signed the agreement. It wasn't much compared to what he'd taken, but it represented something important. Accountability. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to change. Tyler started helping around the house without being asked. He stopped going out with his former friends, the ones who had encouraged his spending spree. And most significantly, he enrolled in classes at the community college where I worked, taking advantage of my employee discount on tuition. It's not State University, he told me one evening as we sat awkwardly at the dinner table, but the business program is actually pretty good, and I can transfer the credits later if I keep my grades up. I nodded, cautiously hopeful yet still guarded. That sounds like a sensible plan. 3 months after the incident, as we had taken to calling it, I came home from work to find Tyler sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers. "What's all this?" I asked. "Financial aid applications," he said. "Scholarships, grants, work-study programs. The academic advisor at the community college helped me find them." I looked through the papers, noting his careful handwriting filling in the forms. "I know it's not going to replace what I took," he said quietly, "but I'm trying to figure out how to pay for school myself from now on." Something loosened in my chest. A knot of resentment and disappointment I hadn't realized I was still carrying. "That's good, Tyler. Really good." 6 months after the incident, Tyler invited me to coffee at a local cafe, his treat. As we sat across from each other, both cradling mugs of overpriced lattes he had insisted on buying, he slid an envelope across the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside was a check for $3,000 and a handwritten letter. I looked up at him questioningly. "It's from my grandfather," Tyler explained. "Dad's father." I reached out to him, told him everything that happened. "He sent that for your savings account." I was stunned. My ex-father-in-law had never been particularly involved in Tyler's life, much less mine. "Keep reading," Tyler urged, nodding at the letter. "Dear Jessica, Tyler has told me about his actions and the damage he has caused. While nothing can excuse what he did, I want you to know that he came to me of his own accord, fully admitting his wrongdoing and seeking to make amends. I am sending this money as a small contribution toward what he owes you. But more importantly, I wanted you to know how proud I am of the woman who raised my grandson to ultimately face his mistakes with courage. The boy made a terrible error in judgment, but the man he is becoming gives me hope. With respect and admiration, Charles Reynolds." I looked up from the letter, tears blurring my vision. "You didn't have to do that," I said. "Contact your grandfather, I mean." Tyler shrugged, looking uncomfortable with my emotion. "It was the right thing to do. And I've been thinking a lot about right and wrong lately." I carefully folded the letter and placed it back in the envelope, trying to collect myself. "There's something else," Tyler continued. "I got offered a management trainee position at the warehouse. Better pay, daytime hours so I can still take evening classes. If I accept, I could increase the monthly payments on our agreement." Our agreement, the formal document that now defined our relationship. "That's wonderful news," I said sincerely. "You should take it." He nodded, looking relieved. "I already did. I start next week." As we finished our coffee, talking tentatively about neutral topics, his classes, my work, the unseasonably warm weather, I realized something had shifted between us again. The wall of hurt and distrust was still there, but now it had a small window cut into it. A possibility for something new to grow from the ruins of what had been destroyed. 1 year after the incident, I used my employee discount to enroll in classes myself. Something I had always wanted to do but had postponed for Tyler's sake. At 47, I was finally working toward my own degree in accounting, taking evening classes alongside students half my age. Tyler, true to his word, had increased his monthly payments and was now sending $750 each month. He had moved into a small apartment with a roommate from the community college, was maintaining a 3.8 GPA, and had been promoted at the warehouse. We had dinner together every Sunday, a new tradition that felt different from our old relationship but valuable in its own way. During one such dinner, as I was telling him about a particularly difficult exam I had aced, he interrupted me. "I'm proud of you, Mom," he said suddenly. The words caught me off guard. For so long our roles had been clear. I was the proud parent, he was the child whose achievements I celebrated. This reversal felt strange but not unwelcome. "Thanks," I said a little awkwardly. "I'm proud of you too, you know. The way you've handled everything this past year. It can't have been easy." He was quiet for a moment, pushing food around his plate. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Do you think you'll ever fully trust me again?" The question hung in the air between us, weighty with implication. I considered deflecting, offering platitudes about time healing all wounds, but Tyler deserved honesty. "I don't know," I admitted. "Trust isn't something that can be demanded or rushed. It has to be rebuilt day by day." He nodded slowly. "That's fair. I just want you to know that I understand now what you sacrificed for me all those years. And I'm sorry I took it for granted. It wasn't a dramatic moment of reconciliation like in the movies. There were no swelling violins, no tearful embraces. Just a quiet acknowledgement of harm done, and the long, unglamorous work of making amends. 2 years after the incident, I graduated with my associate's degree in accounting. Tyler sat in the audience, cheering loudly when my name was called. That same month, he transferred to State University, having completed his preliminary courses at the community college with honors. The day he moved into his new apartment, a modest place shared with 2 other students, I helped him carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs. It was nothing like the luxury apartment from before. The furniture was secondhand, the appliances outdated. But he had paid the security deposit himself, with money he had earned. As we unloaded the last of his belongings, I noticed a framed document hanging on his bedroom wall. It was the repayment agreement he had signed 2 years earlier, now with multiple lines crossed off as payments were completed. Why do you keep that? I asked, genuinely curious. It can't be a pleasant reminder. Tyler looked at the framed document thoughtfully. It reminds me of who I don't want to be anymore, he said simply, and who I'm working to become. 3 years after the incident, I received a job offer from a prestigious accounting firm, a position that would nearly double my salary. The same week, Tyler graduated with his bachelor's degree in business administration, landing a job at a marketing firm in the city. At his graduation ceremony, he handed me an envelope similar to the one he had given me at the cafe years earlier. Inside was a cashier's check for $12,000. What's this? I asked, confused. I've been saving, he explained. Working extra hours, living frugally. I want to accelerate the repayment plan. With this payment and the regular monthly amounts he had been sending, Tyler had now repaid over half of what he had taken. The money was important, yes, but more significant was what it represented. A commitment to making things right no matter how difficult or time-consuming. 5 years after the incident, on a crisp autumn day much like the one when this whole ordeal began, Tyler invited me to dinner at a nice restaurant downtown. Not extravagant, but certainly more upscale than our usual meeting places. When I arrived, he was already seated, looking nervous but determined. On the table in front of him was an envelope and a small wrapped package. What's the occasion? I asked as I sat down. 5 years, he said simply. I nodded, understanding immediately. 5 years since the betrayal that had changed everything between us. 5 years of rebuilding what had been broken. He pushed the envelope toward me first. Inside was a check for the remaining balance of his debt, along with a letter. Mom, with this payment I have repaid the money I took from you. But I know that what I really took was something far more valuable. Your trust, your peace of mind, your sense of security. These things cannot be repaid with money. 5 years ago I made the worst mistake of my life. I betrayed the one person who had always been there for me, who had sacrificed everything to give me opportunities. I was selfish, entitled, and cruel. There is no excuse for what I did. But these past 5 years have taught me more than the previous 21 combined. I've learned about responsibility, consequences, and the true meaning of love. Not the easy kind that gives whatever is asked, but the harder kind that holds people accountable because it believes they can be better. You could have written me off. Many parents would have. Instead, you gave me the chance to make amends, to grow up, to become someone worthy of your love again. It was the hardest gift anyone has ever given me, and the most valuable. I know our relationship will never be what it was before, but I hope it can continue to become something new. Something built on mutual respect, genuine understanding, and earned trust. With love and gratitude, Tyler. I finished reading with tears streaming down my face. Tyler handed me a tissue, looking embarrassed but resolute. There's more, he said, nodding toward the small wrapped package. I opened it to find a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm. A key. It's symbolic, Tyler explained awkwardly. For unlocking a new chapter, I guess? The jeweler said it could represent new beginnings. I slipped the bracelet onto my wrist, feeling the weight of the past 5 years. The hurt, the anger, the slow rebuilding of something that could never be exactly what it was, but might someday be something equally valuable. It's perfect, I said, and meant it. As we shared a meal and tentative conversation, I reflected on the journey we had traveled. The young man sitting across from me was not the entitled boy who had stolen my savings and called me selfish for wanting it back. He was someone different, someone who had faced his worst self and chosen to be better. And I was different too. No longer just Tyler's mom, sacrificing everything for his future. I was Jessica Reynolds with a career I loved, a degree I had earned, and a life that belonged fully to me. The betrayal that had nearly broken me had instead forced me to rebuild myself. Stronger, wiser, and more complete. Later that night, as I sat on my small balcony watching the stars, I fingered the key charm on my new bracelet and thought about locks and keys, endings and beginnings. About how sometimes the deepest wounds, if tended properly, can heal into something stronger than what was there before. The mother-son relationship Tyler and I had now wasn't perfect. It carried scars and memories of pain that would never completely fade. But it was real and hard one, built on a foundation of accountability rather than blind devotion. And as I looked up at the vast night sky, I realized that perhaps this was the greatest lesson of all. That love, real love, isn't about never making mistakes. It's about what you do after the mistakes are made. It's about the courage to face consequences, the humility to make amends, and the persistence to rebuild what has been broken, piece by painstaking piece. Trust once shattered may never be whole again. But maybe it doesn't need to be. Maybe the cracks and repairs become part of its character, a testament to what has been endured and overcome. As for me, Jessica Reynolds, I had learned that sometimes the most profound act of motherly love isn't sacrifice or forgiveness. It's having the courage to hold your child accountable, even when it breaks your heart. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is permission to put your own oxygen mask on first. That night I slept more peacefully than I had in years, the weight of betrayal finally lifting from my shoulders, replaced by something that felt remarkably like freedom.